I know. This generation, they might listen to this video right here and they might call me a square or they might call me a goofy or whatever. But for the life of me, I cannot understand why these young, talented people keep on making a lot of money, handing it over to lawyers who are not black, by the way, and then ending up doing time in prison. It's like a cycle. Damn. Ain't it supposed to be like you make a lot of money and then you grow old and you live to be free and take care of your family and travel the world and see places and do things with the money you made? NBA YoungBoy seems to be one of those trapped in a cycle. NBA YoungBoy has a lot of fans, so there's going to be a lot of people who are disappointed if he has to go down right now and do a whole lot of time behind all this. Came to light today, April 18th of 2024, NBA YoungBoy orchestrated a large-scale prescription drug fraud operation. This is what the court documents say, according to the news media. The attorneys have filed a motion to revoke his house arrest, meaning they want to take him into custody. I believe a judge has signed off on it and has ordered NBA YoungBoy taken into custody. They've also said that NBA YoungBoy will now be transferred from Utah back to Baton Rouge, Louisiana to serve out the rest of his time while he awaits sentencing. Damn. All you had to do was stay in that mansion, enjoy yourself, be free with your woman and your children, and you couldn't do it. Damn. Baton Rouge native and rap superstar NBA YoungBoy, he is at the center of an investigation into a large-scale prescription drug fraud ring operating across Utah. According to an arrest report, YoungBoy, whose real name is Contrell Golden, he is suspected of orchestrating a scheme in which fake prescriptions for promethazine and codeine were called into several pharmacies around the state of Utah. First of all, Utah ain't the place to go do all of this. Golden, 24 years old, known as NBA YoungBoy, he was arrested on Tuesday, April 16th, around 6:30 p.m., and he was booked into the Cache County Jail north of where he was serving house arrest in Weber County. The scheme reportedly involved several other individuals and the use of fake names, forming what authorities described as an ongoing criminal enterprise. It is said that they were using even dead people's fake names and identifications. I think you have to have like this special number in order to fill your prescriptions. They had those information on the dead people and another identification number that was linked to actual pharmacists. A lengthy 10-page report that was released 2 days after NBA YoungBoy's arrest detailed several incidents in which a physician was impersonated and fraudulent prescriptions were acquired. Damn. I done seen them give this young lady, I seen them give a girl like 7 years for this. All she was trying to do was fill up a fake prescription, and she ended up signing a signature, forged a signature to the prescription, and she got 7 years for that. So I don't know what they're going to give NBA YoungBoy or how long he's going to be gone for. On the flip side, music pays even when the artist is not around. NBA YoungBoy was able to make a whole lot of money, climb the charts without even leaving the house. So it makes no difference to his handlers and investors whether he is out of prison or he is in a house in Utah doing house arrest, because he wasn't out and about all the time anyways, but the money kept on coming in because he kept making music and putting that music out. He is somewhat of a figure that people look at and they sense danger because he plays this gangster persona, this killer persona. I, for one, thought it was because of his street beefs why he had that gash in the middle of his forehead. And I'm like, yo, he is battle tested and proven in these streets. Come to find out, he broke his neck on the bed as a kid, and they had to put a halo on him, and that's where he got the scar in his forehead from. But anyways, Cache County Sheriff's Office investigates rapper Kentrell Golden, aka NBA YoungBoy, in a large-scale prescription fraud ring involving promethazine and codeine. Golden and his associates are suspected of using fraudulent prescriptions, impersonating a physician, and obtaining controlled substances from multiple Utah pharmacies. Golden's known associates were arrested during attempted prescription pickups, caught live in the act. A firearm and prescription medications were found during the execution of a search warrant at Golden's Utah residence. Golden denies knowledge of fraudulent activities during a police interview. Oh man, you on house arrest. You should not be in a possession of a firearm. And there he was. Not only firearm, but drugs. You know, I kind of think NBA YoungBoy wanted to leave home. Anyways, he was tired of being in that place. And he would rather be in prison or in jail amongst guys. And the reason I say that is because a couple of weeks ago, he put a video out on social media, a picture on social media, where he had a mouthful of Xanax pills. Now, whether those pills were real or they were fake, or he was just trying to stir the pot and make the media go crazy, it was enough for any law enforcement official to have a look at it. You're on house arrest. You are being closely monitored. So, of course, some probation officer or somebody inside of the law is going to look at that and be like, hey, yo, I think we should set up a sting and run in on this dude and see if we could catch him doing anything. Maybe he's just doing this for entertainment's sake, but maybe this is actually really real what he's doing right in front of our eyes, you know? And here we go. They ran in on him and they caught him with guns and prescription drugs on a house arrest. So on September 19th of 2023, authorities say that someone posed as a physician from Provo, Utah, to call in a fraudulent prescription to Reed's Pharmacy in Hiram for a patient named Bethel White. The caller actually provided a valid DEA number and other identification for the real physician. The suspect's call was traced to a number that is different from the actual physician's clinic. The physician being impersonated at the clinic confirmed to investigators that they had no association with that prescription whatsoever, and that no patient by that name is a patient of theirs. The physician reportedly told employees this had happened several times today in that one day. Law enforcement officers waited in the parking lot of Reed's Pharmacy for someone to show up to retrieve the bogus prescriptions on that particular day, but no one arrived. They've been trailing and investigating NBA YoungBoy since 2023 inside of his house. We talking about the FBI and others. On the same day, Spence's Pharmacy in Logan City received a call from the same suspect, posing as a physician, using the same physician's information, calling in a prescription for another patient named Gwendolyn Cox. That prescription was also for more promethazine with codeine. 2 weeks later, a woman suspected of being an associate of NBA YoungBoy retrieved the drugs, and she claimed that Gwendolyn Cox was her grandmother, and she was picking up her grandmother's prescription. On October 9th, Spence's pharmacy received another call from the suspect, identifying as the same physician again, trying to prescribe promethazine and codeine again to Gwendolyn Cox. This time, the pharmacist requested a hard copy of the prescription with the patient, and the suspect quickly hung up the phone. Oh shit, they're onto us. Pharmacy employees contacted the real physician in Provo, who denied calling any prescriptions and notifying Spence that his information was being used fraudulently. On January 17th of 2024, investigators say that a fake prescription for promethazine with codeine again was called into Larry's pharmacy in Smithfield in Utah. The prescription had been called in by a suspect who is identifying themselves as the same physician again, this time again for a patient named Gwendolyn Cox. This time they spelt Gwendolyn Cox slightly different. They were getting desperate. Addiction will make you do all kinds of stupid stuff. The pharmacy found the call to be very suspicious, and so they contacted the physician in Provo again, who again denied ordering the prescriptions. The physician told Larry's about the pattern of fraudulent prescriptions using his name, and he denied being the person who called in this prescription. So he said, this is another one of those. They've been using my name lately, man, and picking up prescriptions in my name. I am not the one. I do not have a patient by that name. So this time the pharmacy contacted law enforcement. The court documents say that someone at Larry's was in contact with someone who claimed to be Gwendolyn Cox and was making arrangements for her grandchild to pick up her prescription. Pharmacy employees described the voice on the phone as someone who was believed to be a much younger person trying to disguise their voice to sound much older. Hello? Yeah, I'm gonna send my granddaughter over there to pick my prescription up. My name is Gwendolyn Cox. The pharmacy attempted to call the phone number for the fake physician and Gwendolyn, and they were either disconnected or they were not in service. Detectives devised a plan. The plan was to intercept whoever arrived to pick up the prescription from Larry's. Two different females arrived in a white Chevy Tahoe registered to NBA YoungBoy out of Texas, and the inside of the vehicle smelled strongly like marijuana. According to the report, they were on their way to pick up illegal prescription drugs, and they were smoking on that strong while they were on their way to go commit this crime. You can't make this up. The Tahoe, identified by a specific dent and by the specific rims on it, is also in one of NBA YoungBoy's music videos, one investigator has said. The women were detained, and later they were arrested for their suspected role in this operation. Detectives say that the women agreed to a search, during which they found residual marijuana, and they found an empty case for a .45 caliber handgun. The woman claimed that the marijuana was not theirs, and that they were at the pharmacy to pick up a prescription for a friend whose name they reportedly did not provide. During an interview with the women, investigators says that one of them mistakenly identified the friend as Deborah Cox, not Gwendolyn. And that's when they were on to what's really happening. So the following day, someone claiming to be NBA YoungBoy's business manager contacted the detectives to get the Tahoe out of impound. The arrest report says that the impound company was suspicious that the Tahoe had been stolen. Detectives requested to speak to NBA YoungBoy directly to confirm that the vehicle belonged to him and that the women actually had his permission to use that vehicle. They put him on a conference call. Conference call meaning the phone is on speaker, everybody is hearing it all in the room, and there are multiple people there in that conference call. On the conference call, NBA YoungBoy claimed that the arrested females were actual family members of his and that yes, he had given them permission to use his vehicle. During the investigation, an agent was contacted by a person posing as Gwendolyn Cox, or a person named Gwendolyn Cox, who apparently misspoke and said her last name was Gwendolyn White, not Cox, when asked what was her last name. Now, mind you, she first called and said, yes, I'm Gwendolyn Cox, it's my prescription. And while they were talking to her, they said, could you say your name again? And she said, Gwendolyn White. Court document, you can't make this up. Court document says that Cox could not provide her age or her address, only her birth month and her birth date. It was very clear a fake voice was being used, the document states. Gwendolyn sounded as though she was a much younger male who comes from a southern state. Gwendolyn didn't have a Utah accent, and Gwendolyn did not sound like a female to the investigators on the phone. They said at this point they realized that this was a younger male who was trying to disguise his voice as a female and using somebody's identity. The document says that the caller replaced the word ask with ax. A-S-K, ask, the proper way to say ask. They would say ax instead, A-X-E, or other variations consistent with a more southern dialect than a Utah accent. You see all these things, right? All these things makes law enforcement officials 10 steps ahead of you. You swear you doing something, but your southern accent is so heavy that they know right away that this isn't even somebody from Utah. But okay, carry on, because you know better than everybody else. Now, during the conference call between the detectives and NBA YoungBoy, the court document says that the conversation continued with Cantrell Golden for a duration of time. And Cantrell Golden, being NBA YoungBoy, he made a statement determined to be an excited utterance. The statement reportedly made to Golden's brother off camera was ax about him. The same ax that the person who was saying ax before was used then. The prescription that they had picked up. And then he continued, she on the fucking hospital bed. She on the hospital bed. Given the manner in which this conversation would break up and go silent for durations of time, it is suspected that they had muted my ability to hear them multiple times throughout the phone call, says one of the officers on the arrest report. The utterance shows that both knowledge by NBA YoungBoy and others about the fraudulent prescription being attempted to get picked up. In addition, it proves intent. Cantrell Golden, NBA YoungBoy, he used the word ax instead of the word ask. This is similar to my conversation with Gwendolyn Cox the night before when Gwendolyn used the same word. Records that were obtained by investigators revealed several fraudulent prescriptions had been successfully picked up with the same person with the same drawl saying the same thing using that word that tipped them off. A prescription of promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Ann White, whose date of birth was 1949, to the Midland Pharmacy in Roy, Utah. That prescription was called in twice, September 15 of 2023 and October 9th of 2023, both for a 8-day supply. This prescription was picked up both times by a male individual who will be referred to as associate number 1. A prescription of promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Beatrice White, date of birth 1949, at the Costco Pharmacy in Riverton, Utah. The prescription was called in 5 times and successfully picked up 5 times. September 21st, October 9th, October 13th, October 24th, and January 15th of 2024 for various amounts of promethazine and codeine ranging from a 2-day to a 4-day supply. The prescriptions were all picked up by a female individual referred to as associate number 2 on September 21st of 2023. Associate number 1 on October 9th of 2023 and October 13th of 2023, a female referred to as associate number 3 on October 24th of 2023 and January 15th of 2024. God damn. A prescription of promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient, Gwendolyn White, date of birth 1950, to the Medicine Market Pharmacy in Cottonwood Heights, Utah. That prescription was called in twice for 2 8-day supplies. The prescription was picked up by a male who will be referred to as associate number 5 on September 13th of 2023. Associate number 1 on October 14, 2023. An additional prescription was called in on January 11th of 2024, but was identified as fraudulent and it was not filled. A prescription of promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Alice White, date of birth 1949, to Cecil's Pharmacy in Lehi, Utah. That prescription was called in once for a 8-day supply. The prescription was picked up by a male individual who will be referred to as associate number 6 on September 11th of 2023. Another prescription for promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient, Francine White, date of birth 1949, to the U of U Greenwood Pharmacy in Midvale, Utah. The prescription was for an 8-day supply. The prescription was picked up by an unknown male individual suspected to be an associate of NBA YoungBoy, who we will call associate number 7, with a driver's license shown, but believed to be of a different individual's driver's license. A prescription for promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Beatrice White, whose date of birth was 1955, to the U of U Pharmacy in Farmington, Utah. That prescription was for 8-day supply, and that prescription was picked up by associate number 7. A prescription for promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Cantrell Golden, date of birth 1953. You got to remember, Cantrell Golden is NBA YoungBoy's actual government name. and they called in a prescription for promethazine and codeine for a control golden, but the date of birth is supposed to be 1953, to the Tremonton Community Pharmacy in Tremonton, Utah. That prescription was for a 7-day supply. That prescription was attempted to be picked up on January 19th of 2024 by a juvenile who will be referred to as an associate and associate number 8. However, associate number 8 was apprehended and was turned over to legal guardians by the Box Elder Drug Task Force when associate 8 attempted to pick up the prescription along with other legitimate prescriptions for Cantrell Galden, using his real name and his real date of birth, and call in from a provider out of Houston, Texas. So NBA YoungBoy actually is on some type of medication, and he had legitimate prescriptions, but he would also have somebody fake being a physician and call in prescriptions for a Cantrell Galden that was born in 1953. He's only 23 or 24 years old, so there's no way his date of birth was 1953. They sent a juvenile to go pick the prescription up, and the juvenile was caught up in a sting operation and was turned over to legal guardian. A prescription of promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Francine Taylor, date of birth 1949, to the U of U pharmacy in Farmington, Utah. The prescription was for 8 days supply, and that prescription was picked up by associate number 5 on September 15th. This incident was reported to the local agency after dispensing the prescription. After they done gave them the prescription already, they reported it. The prescription of promethazine with codeine was called in for a patient named Gwendolyn Cox, date of birth 1951, to the Spence's Pharmacy in North Logan, Utah, and that prescription was for another 8 days supply. That prescription was picked up by associate number 2, September 21st, 2023, and that prescription was called in again at a later time and identified as a fraudulent prescription by the pharmacy, with which they used to notify law enforcement. It is of value to note that all the patients' birth dates range in the same 40s to 50s, 1940-something to 1950-something, suggesting that they are elderly. In addition, several of the names are repeated, including different combination of first and last names. Like, for instance, they would go with Francine Taylor, date of birth 1949, and then they would go with Gwendolyn Cox, date of birth 1951, and then they would switch it up and go with Francine Cox, and then they would switch that up and go with Gwendolyn Taylor, right? And attach different date of births and different names and just mix and match the same set of names. Several of the names are repeated, including different combinations of first and last names with different date of births. This list does not include all the likely attempts at calling in the prescriptions to other various pharmacies that have identified it as fraud prior to filling these prescriptions. This is just a short amount of what actually took place. Now, a search warrant was executed at NBA YoungBoy's multi-million-dollar home northeast of Huntsville, Utah on April 16th. NBA YoungBoy and other guests at the house, they were all detained. A firearm was located inside of the home, which NBA YoungBoy told detectives that firearm belongs to his wife. He claimed to have no recollection of the previous conference calls and no knowledge of the fraudulent prescriptions, according to the arrest report. The NBA Street Gang is a group of associates of NBA YoungBoy that have been classified as a gang because of their structure, because of their affiliation, because of their violent behavior. Kentrell Golden's music is heavily influenced by such behavior, and he is consistently rapping about shooting people and killing people and using drugs and having a strong dislike for law enforcement. This is what is stated in the documents against him. Golden, which is NBA YoungBoy, is being held now without bond on 63 counts, including possession of a dangerous weapon by a restricted person, identity theft, identity fraud, procuring or attempting to procure drugs or prescription, forgery, and possession of marijuana. A federal judge based in Baton Rouge signed a request for federal prosecutors to schedule a bond revocation hearing following his arrest, which means his bond will be revoked and he will be sitting in lockup until further notice. Now, judge orders NBA YoungBoy to be taken into federal custody after the prescription drug ring arrest. A federal judge has now, who is based in Baton Rouge, signed a request from federal prosecutors to schedule a bond revocation hearing for NBA YoungBoy after the rapper was arrested on 63 state charges in Utah. Shelley Dick, Chief Judge of the Middle District of Louisiana, ordered federal agents to take NBA YoungBoy, whose whole name is Kentrell Golden, into federal custody and to hold him there until the bond revocation hearing has been scheduled. If Judge Dick agrees with the prosecutors that NBA YoungBoy violated terms of his pretrial release, he could order that he be held there until his trial. NBA YoungBoy was allowed to live in Utah on house arrest ahead of a trial in Baton Rouge that had involved guns and gun charges. He was arrested in 2020 at a music video shoot near a place called Chippewa Street after the police raided the scene and rounded up 16 people, including NBA YoungBoy. Now, investigators in Cache County, Utah, they have said that NBA YoungBoys and others were caught contacting pharmacies across Utah to fill phony prescriptions. And according to court records, NBA YoungBoy and others, they used these phony prescriptions to obtain various drugs, including promethazine and codeine. Codeine, which is commonly intended to be used as a cough suppressant. But we all know out here what the hell they use codeine for, right? The Cache County Sheriff's Office charged NBA YoungBoy with 63 counts of various charges that are related to his alleged crime. He, let's say this, man. He looked like he gonna be gone for a while, okay? Utah officials said on Wednesday that Baton Rouge rapper NBA YoungBoy was arrested on multiple charges after a raid was conducted by local and federal officials, including the FBI and the U.S. Secret Service. Yo, it gets no worse than this. 63 charges. The raid was conducted by FBI agents and U.S. Secret Service agents. Oh, man. The rapper, whose real name is Kentrell Deshaun Golden, is being held at the Cache County Jail. And NBA YoungBoy also faces multiple charges in Louisiana. Jail records showed on Wednesday that NBA YoungBoy was 24 years old, and he was booked in on Tuesday night, hours after Tuesday morning raid, on engaging in unlawful activities, procuring or attempting to procure drugs, identity fraud, forgery, possession of controlled substances, and possession of a dangerous weapon. This search warrant is a piece of an ongoing investigation into criminal conduct, a statement from the Cache County Sheriff's Office said. And due to the complexity of this investigation, we will not be releasing any additional details concerning the investigation at this time. Golden, which is NBA YoungBoy, he was serving house arrest in Utah at the time of his arrest. Now, you got to remember this. He pleaded guilty to an aggravated assault charge back in 2017 after a 2016 shooting in Baton Rouge. He initially had been charged with 2 counts of attempted first-degree murder. In 2020, NBA YoungBoy was among 16 people, like I said earlier, that was arrested at the video shoot, which they found several guns and they found a large quantity of drugs at that video shoot as well. Possession of a dangerous weapon, that's a second degree felony in Utah. That's punishable by up to 15 years in prison just by itself. Engaging in a pattern of lawful activity, identity fraud, forgery, those are third-degree felonies, and those are punishable by up to 5 years in prison on each count. Attempting to procure drugs, that's a misdemeanor. That's punishable by up to 364 days in jail. While possession of a controlled substance is punishable by up to 6 months in jail, depending on how much it is and depending on how they charge you with that, right? If it's a lot, you will get a charge probably with the intent to distribute, depending on how it's packaged, etc., etc., etc. Let's end this video by saying this, man. I wish NBA YoungBoy all the best, but from what I can see, I don't think he wanted to be free anymore. I think he wanted to be up out of here. I think he just wanted to go experience what spending a couple of years in prison could possibly be like. Well, you know what? For every interview I've seen and the mixed personality and him switching personalities and going from acting like he's a goon and acting like he is a psycho killer, calculated murderer, to acting like he is this and he is that, he'll have all the time in the world to work these things out. Let's not forget, though, I'm under the impression that a lot of these recording artists, they're actually working for law enforcement. Because if you check the charges and then they go in and they're out in no time, and for some reason they always get a bond, or they always get house arrest, or they always get a bail amount that they could pay. Their handlers and their investors are able to pay this money and get them up out of there. Whereas average people, you are not getting any bond on stuff like this. You pass everything and go straight to prison. So let's see how this works out. And we'll continue to follow up with the details. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. And I'll catch you on the next video. You already know, it's Hot Topics TV. And if the topic is hot, we are on it. I'm out. Peace.